Hello and welcome to the 2020 FIA Gran Turismo Championships. We're back in action today for the Top 16 Superstars, round 10 of the North America region. My name is Tom Brooks, alongside me, Jimmy Broadbent. Jimmy, let's get straight into the action. We're going racing for the Nations Cup at Spa-Francorchamps, Group 1 cars. It's going to be quite an exciting time, this one, I reckon. 16 laps and different strategies in particular will make this one very, very exciting.
Yeah, we've already had two good races here at Spa in other regions, and it's definitely a circuit that I very much enjoy as a driver and to commentate on as well. Then you match that up with the Group 1 cars, the LMP1 style category, and high downforce and Spa is a match made in heaven, so always fun to watch and commentate on.
Well, quite. Let's get ready then, shall we, and head over, see what's going to happen ahead of the Nations Cup race. And here are the Group 1 machines all ready to do battle. Randall Hayward lines up on pole position. He'll be looking to turn things around, of course, after his disappointment last time. Robbie Haig alongside him. Good qualifying performance, one of the best that we've seen from him. Danny Solace, P3, again, also looking to try and turn things around. P4, Andrew Brooks. Keep an eye out for him. Didn't qualify so strongly, but we know how quick he can be off the start. Lynch lines up in P5 in the R18. And alongside him, Tristan Bayliss. Very colourful liveried machine on his car. Next row of the grid, headed by Kevin Pounder. And 8th position, rather, is Leslie. P9, Mark Pinnell in the 2011 R18. And alongside the Canadian driver is Mitchell in the Peugeot 908. That car very quick in a straight line. Stewart lines up P11, just outside the top 10 there for the Canadian. Alongside him is Grove. Heading further back on the grid, we can see P13 of Helt. And alongside the 2011 Audi R18 is the Toyota TS050 hybrid of Valandia. 15th position is the Audi R18 of Holman there as well. And in 16th and last place on the grid is Morel. So then, 16 laps of this circuit. Our first look at the tyres here, Jimmy. What do you reckon for this one then?
Interesting to see Holman right at the bottom of the field opting for that soft tyre. You tend to see people going for the hard tyres if you're qualifying towards the back, but as usual we see the top two drivers going for a softer strategy, a more aggressive strategy to get away quickly and try and build a gap. And then it sort of trickles down from there, soft and medium down the field. Highest hard runner is Kevin Pounder in 7th position, so he's going to have to try his best to keep the guys behind him, otherwise he's going to end up losing a little bit of time in that first stint. Interesting to see more of a mix of cars in this North America region. In the past two races we've been commentating on, it's been an R18 dominated field, and whilst the R18s I think still number the most here in this North America region, there are a lot more of the older cars in here as well as a lone Toyota at the back there. Watch out for those hybrids though, coming out of the tight corners. They're going to just drive away from the older cars.
Randall Hayward leads the 16 driver strong field around then. The 2020 Nations Cup for the top 16 superstars of the North American region. Round 10 here at Spa-Francorchamps about to get underway as Randall Hayward leads the field over the line, and we go green in Belgium then down towards La Source for the first time. Hayward and Haig already pulling out an advantage on those soft tyres, able to brake significantly later than Solace and Brooks on the medium compound. They're going to have to be watching their mirrors because Lynch, who is in 5th position at the moment, is also on the soft tyre and will be looking to try and make hay whilst the sun shines. Up through Eau Rouge and Radion we go for the first time. There is Solace in P3, the gold chrome liveried machine, closely followed by Andrew Brooks. There's Lynch in the background. What is he going to be able to do? Will he be able to launch an attack in towards Les Combes? Don't think he's going to be quite close enough here then. So these guys clearly looking comfortable in terms of straight line speed. But as we get in towards the middle sector, this is where we'll see the difference in tyre performance.
Yeah, it sounds good for these guys to be in those newer R18s. Getting that boost at the start has given them a little bit of a gap to the guys behind. And that means they can really, really make use of that soft compound tyre, as you say, Tom, and just try and spread out that gap back towards 3rd and 4th position. Right now, Hayward leads, Haig behind as well. Great start here for Robbie Haig already in 2nd position, all over the back of Randall Hayward, someone we know is very fast. He's been at a lot of the World Tour events, so maybe a familiar name for you watching at home. Coming through the Fanish chicane for the first time, you can see the gap there already. 2nd then, in the background there's 3rd, 3 seconds behind Robbie Haig, so a great start there.
Plethora of penalties on the left-hand side of your screen as well. Leslie, Pinnell, Grove, sorry, not Grove, rather, Holman, Morel and Helt have all been given penalties for one reason or another on this first lap. Presumably that's because I would imagine it got a little bit feisty in the midfield and there's been a bit of contact between them. Very rare to exceed track limits, but stranger things have happened. Let's wait and see what happens. Here comes Hayward on the defensive then against Robbie Haig. Into the bus stop chicane we go. Hayward's got the line, he's got track position. He gives Heck no racing room at all through there, and Heck, for good measure, lights up the rear tyres coming out of the final corner. The American driver not able to find his way past his compatriot as we come to start lap number 2 here.
Yeah, squeezed a bit there was Heck. I think it was a fair move there by Hayward. I mean, he's always going to come across to the left-hand side of the circuit there, and Heck now has another chance to get this done. Pit stop's coming in as well. Our hard runners predictably pitting in on the first lap to get rid of that compound tyre onto the mediums. On board still with Heck though, over the top of Radion. Got the draft all the way up Kemmel Straight now. Randall Hayward goes defensive to the inside. Heck goes to the outside. We'll see Hayward now come across to squeeze Heck as we come up to Laycombe. Heck's going to try to go a long way around. Can he make that stick? He might do the touching door handles, or whatever these things have as door handles as we come out the exit. And there you go, he's made it stick. A nice move there by Heck. Absolutely awesome stuff. Very confident. I think a little bit of payback there for the little bit of contact at the bus stop.
Committed himself to the extreme. There was no way he was going to give that position up, was he, once he got alongside him in towards Laycombe, and it was phenomenal to see him muscling out Hayward through that corner. The question is now, can Hayward retaliate, or is his pace going to drop off? Hayward was of course fastest at the end of lap 1, given he came over the timing line first, but I'll be interested to see what the difference in lap times is at the first of our racing laps, as it were. Given this is lap 2 now of this one. Meanwhile, look at 4th and 5th place getting very close to one another. That's Andrew Brooks. He's going to have to be keeping an eye full of his mirrors because he has got Christopher Lynch close behind in the 2011 Audi R18. Both those drivers in exactly the same car, very different liveries on them, but it's Canadian driver versus American coming through Stavelot 2 on the run down towards Blanchimont and the bus stop chicane. Is he going to be able to launch an attack into there, maybe? We wonder. Very close in the slipstream behind. He, of course, has got the softer compound of tyre, so he'll have more grip under braking. We ride on board with the American driver now. Not sure if he's close enough here to Andrew Brooks. Indeed, he just thinks better of it. It's early days at the moment, so he's got a lot more to lose than he does to gain, but clearly signalling his intentions, and that just goes to show the difference here in tyre performance, Jimmy, between the soft and the medium compound. Yeah,
definitely. Those soft tyres very quick, but you might have noticed, Tom, that Danny Solace, who is in 3rd place currently, has taken that gap down a little bit to Hayward. Only 2 seconds now behind Randall Hayward. The gap's going to go up a little bit here. Now here's a great example of hybrid versus non-hybrid coming out of the Solace. There's Stewart in the hybrid car just pulling by Leslie down the hill towards Eau Rouge and Radion. But now if you look behind us, we're going to have Leslie come straight back by, most likely, in that non-hybrid car, the Peugeot 908. There you go, he's got the top speed, far less downforce. Goodbye, says Leslie. And Stewart, who felt like a bit of a hero coming out of the Source, has lost the place back to Leslie.
Some of the drivers were saying there's a 12 mile an hour difference in top speed between this Audi R18, the Audi R18 and the Peugeot 908. So there's nothing you can do to combat that, really. There's no cure for that lack of straight line speed, even if you had the advantage of having a slipstream. Meanwhile, not an advantage there for Lynch, as he just goes a little bit wide out of Ix, down in towards Pouhon. Riding on board with him, it's just the commitment through this corner I absolutely love. You can see him just soaring away at the wheel here, looking significantly faster. Now Randall Hayward is back ahead of Robbie Heck for the race lead here, so we missed that. But the American has got him back in front. Whether it was a mistake from Heck or not, I'm not 100% sure. However, the upshot is that Hayward now is back in front in this race. So, if he is back in front, can he pull out a gap?
Either a mistake or a kind of rough move at the top of Laycombe is going to be my guesses for that, because the gap to Daniel Solace has come down too, which means they've both been slowed down at some point. So I'm going to guess that there's been a bit of squabbling going on. Speaking of squabbling, are we going to see more here going into the bus stop? We don't. I think they need to start thinking about working together just a little bit here. It's very tempting when you're the guy in second and you're convinced you're faster than the person in first. You know, if any driver, be it on Gran Turismo or out on the circuit in real life, is going to have that same drive, if you excuse the pun, to get by that person in front. So you have to sort of temper that a little bit. Otherwise, you end up just losing time with all that squabbling. You allow guys behind to maybe get into the battle as well.
fun though it may be to be involved in battles like that, it's not the quickest way around the circuit. You can see there that Hayward's just got a great exit out of La Source, and coming up through Eau Rouge and Radion on towards this Kemmel Straight has been able to pull out a bit of an advantage to Robbie Haig, and Haig is not quite close enough to mount a challenge at the moment. Speaking of that, here is Christopher Lynch once again, all over the rear wing of Andrew Brooks. Again, close, but not quite close enough as things stand at the moment. Into Lecombe though, Brooks really struggling into there, ran it a little bit too hot, compromised his speed through that corner. Is this going to allow Lynch an opportunity at the moment? Very close behind once again, but again thinks better of it. He's being sensible here, is Christopher Lynch. He knows that of course if those two make a bit of contact, if they get involved in the squabble, look who's in the mirrors. Tristan Bayliss, of course, our previous winner for the Manufacturer Series for Porsche last year, if you hark back to Tokyo, I believe it was, ever such a long time ago that was, but well, he could be there ready to take advantage if anything comes awry between these two drivers at the moment. It's just a joy to watch these cars, I think, really more than anything here at Spa-Francorchamps. It's such a driver's circuit. I don't think there's anybody that really doesn't like it, and if they do, I think they need to give their head a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits that, for the most part, is liked by everyone. It has that really nice old school feel while still kind of fitting into decent regs and still having decent overtaking spots as well. It's very rare to have that sort of circuit today, of course, as we still watch Brooks and Lynch 4th and 5th, separated by not very much at all as we come up towards the bus stop. Lynch looking to the outside this time. You can make this work if you can cut back in front of the driver. We're going around the outside of, oh, he has made it work, and there you go. I think Brooks facilitated that slightly there, but great move by Lynch there, just using the downforce of the car into the braking zone, sweeping around the outside before Brooks has know it. Lynch is on his inside, and he's got to give the position up.
Lovely stuff there from Christopher Lynch and Andrew Brooks. Keep an eye out in the background though, because Tristan Bayliss and also Mitchell as well there. That of course is Daniel Mitchell, who is lining in P7, not too far adrift now. The question is of course, can this man here, Christopher Lynch, pull out a gap, close up the 2.2 second deficit he has to Danny Solace in 3rd position? Will Andrew Brooks be able to mount a challenge, a retaliation back coming down this Kemmel Straight? Not close enough here. There is Stewart though. Meanwhile, close in front of him is Matthew Leslie. Down the Kemmel Straight we go. Two Audi R18s doing battle. We ride on board with the Canadian driver who is in P9. He's not made a stop here so far in this race. Only one driver has made 2 stops. That's Morel, who is down in 16th position at the moment. All the other drivers who have made a stop started on the harder compound of tyre. That's to be expected. There's only 1 lap that you have to run these for as a minimum tyre time. And of course they're significantly slower than the medium or the soft compound. You want to get off those as soon as you possibly can. So we'll expect to see drivers either coming in, changing in the middle stage for 1 lap, or presumably the more likely scenario, changing towards the end. Meanwhile, this man here, Randall Hayward's got a bit of a buffer now to Robbie Haig. So once he sorted himself out, got a bit of rhythm going here, Jimmy. He's now 2 seconds ahead of Robbie.
Yeah, that can happen at the start of the race. Sometimes you get a bit flustered and you kind of forget simple things like your braking points. You're in your mirrors a lot, checking for the guys behind, and you can just get out of rhythm pretty much straight away. But as soon as things have calmed down a little bit, you can just get your head down. That's what Hayward's done now, starting to extend that gap back to Heck. Now, while we have a little bit of time, I want to very quickly answer a question that I saw a couple of times yesterday in the chat, which is, why does the Audi R18 have a map of Bahrain, the Bahrain circuit on the cockpit? And the answer to that is that Bahrain is the last race ever for the Audi R18. It was its last ever race back in 2016, end of the season, and the livery you see in Gran Turismo Sport is the last livery it ever ran. So there you go, a bit of trivia for you.
Lovely stuff. Nice one there, Jimmy. That will be, of course, when the car was scanned by the team at Polyphony as well. I tell you, it's such an arduous process getting these cars in game. You know, we always see requests from people on social media and on the chat saying, oh, you know, we want this car in game, we want that car in game. And, you know, from start to finish, it's a process of about 6 months to get one of these cars scanned and ready in the game. It's a phenomenal effort by the team, just to give you a bit more of a brief insight into that. Meanwhile, Kevin Pounder has come into the pit lane from 10th position. He has gone from the racing medium tyres onto the soft, from the hards rather onto the medium tyres, I believe. Yep, so he has changed over once more. So he is going to be 2-stopping in this race, because he started on the hard tyre, came in at the end of lap 1, now is on the mediums once again. Here then is Randall Hayward, still leading the way, now 2.7 seconds. He's just in the groove, isn't he, here, Jimmy? This is great. And if you compare the lap times, I mean, last time around, Hayward was a 1:57.0, Heck in second place a 1:58.3, 1.3 seconds. That's a week in terms of finding time around here.
Yeah, definitely is, especially at Spa as well, a circuit where these cars are pretty already maximum. But you think, how are you 1.3 seconds of that quicker? But if you say to yourself, right, Hayward is a tenth a lap, a tenth a corner quicker, you think that's not very much. Then you add that up over the course of 13, 14 corners, and then you get 1.4 seconds. And that's how the fast guys make that time. They're just a little bit quicker everywhere. Speaking of fast guys, look who is starting to close in there in that very interesting livery there from Daniel Solace. Oh, I say that, it's starting to close in. Now, okay, so he's going to go for the two-stop, I think, at this point. He must be. He went quite a way on that medium compound tyre. He's coming in for the soft compound now, so he's going for a fast middle stint and then going for the hard tyre for the one at the end. So on go those soft Michelin tyres. Off he comes out of the pit lane. Now what can he do from here? So he comes out behind Tristan Bayliss. That's interesting, but he's got a bit of clear air though. He's going to catch Tristan fairly quickly on that soft tyre, I think. Look in the mirror though. In the mirror, there's Mitchell in the Peugeot there, just sneaking on in, and he's got the draft coming over the top of Radio. And the last thing that Daniel Solace wants is to have to battle with someone now. He wants a clear air and a clear track on those soft tyres. Will Mitchell go for it? He does. I think Solace may be able to hold him off. We'll see. That 908 very quick in the straight line. Danny tries to hold it all the way around the outside. Not quite got that much grip, Danny. And Mitchell takes in place, and that's really going to be a bit of a slap in the face for Danny. He wanted a clear run.
You can see him flashing the lights in frustration, I think, more than anything there for Solace. And you're right, this could compromise his race quite dearly indeed. The last thing that he needed, he's all over the rear wing. That soft tyre, of course, is a lot newer than Dan Mitchell's in front. And you can see the difference in grip coming through Ix and down in towards Puol, because Solace is just so much faster. But unfortunately, he's not going to be able to combat that 12 mile an hour, allegedly, speed deficit between these two. It's in the middle sector where he's going to be quicker. He's going to find his way past, but of course, as he does, into the Fania chicane. But is he going to be a sitting duck coming out of Stavelot and heading towards Blanchimont and the bus stop chicane? That is the crucial question. And is it going to cost Danny Solace a shot, maybe at the podium, possibly the race win, if he's opting for a different strategy compared to Hayward and Heck at the front?
Well, he's in the older car, Tom, so he's got the same sort of top speed as the 908. It's a new car which suffers more with the boost there. An easy mistake to make because they're both called R18s, which is really confusing when you're trying to understand what's going on. But,
it is when you're as dense as I am as well, to be fair.
I've seen him in real life, he definitely is dense. So anyway, here is Heck. He's in the pit lane. He comes in soft for Heck. That's
so he's three-stopping then?
So, yeah. Interesting to be doing that at this point of the race. I would have thought you'd come in a bit sooner for another set of soft tyres if you were doing that, but it seems that what he's going to do is do one lap on the medium, one lap on the hard, I guess, at the end, and just go soft.
Oh, and Heck comes out ahead of Danny Solace here as well. So is this going to be an advantage for Solace, as he's now got that clear air in front of him?
Well,
let's see what happens.
Now, watch out for it.
Yeah, this is where we're going to see it. Of course, he got good acceleration over there, did Robbie Haig, but let's see the difference in straight line speed. And look at Solace closing up. There's going to be nothing that Heck can do here. He goes defensive, but surely it's all going to be in vain. Down the Kemmel Straight, and Solace ahead of Robbie Haig for third position. This could be potentially very costly indeed for Robbie Haig's race. Let's see how it all plays out. But of course, Heck is doing that three-stop strategy now, as we know. He has got to go flat to the floor until the checkered flag in this one to make that strategy as useful as he possibly can.
That was a proper choo-choo moment, that was, wasn't it? Just looking back in the mirror and go, oh no, here he comes, that's the end of me. That is the speed differential there, as Tom was talking about a lap previous, between this newer model and the older model. But where this new model shines is using that hybrid system where when the hybrid is being deployed, the car temporarily becomes four-wheel drive with 1,000 horsepower, but only carries that for a few seconds a lap, usually out of slower corners. That's why you see them accelerate so well. Meanwhile, we're on board with Andrew Brooks now, who has pitted, flashed the lights to Mitchell in front, saying, listen, I'm faster, mate, get out of the way. And funnily enough, that seems to work. That used to work in my races. If I flash at people, they tend to actually race me harder and push me off the circuit.
I only want to race Jimmy Broadbent, that's what it's all about. Let me pose this to you, Jimmy. If you were in this race right now, which car would you have gone for? I'm imagining it's probably an Audi R18, but which one would it have been?
Oh, that's tricky. I'll tell you what, I'll answer that in a second. Hayward's just come into the pit lane and he's gone for that medium. So he's going for a slower middle stint. So Hayward, I think it's fair to say, Tom, is on that two-stop strategy, it seems like at this point. He must be, because you'd be going soft at this point. So Hayward's opting to try and get rid of the pit stop. What do you think a pit stop is around here? About 8 seconds, 9 seconds or so? Somewhere around there?
Yes, it's not too bad, is it?
So they've got people who are doing the free stop strategy have to make up that sort of time on circuit. So that's where the strategies differ. But to answer your question before, I'd probably end up going with a hybrid version just because I'm so used to driving that. These older versions of the cars are absolute weapons in a straight line, but there's nothing like that hybrid boost. It's awesome. Speaking of, Tristan Bayliss in the older version of the car, pulling up towards the back of Lynch, almost runs into the back of him. You've got to be careful doing that, otherwise you just lose your momentum. 200 mile an hour outside the draft. Lynch, I think, gave him that a little bit. Tristan was quite aggressive on the way in there, but also the tyre difference there, soft versus medium. Tristan had that a little bit more grip.
Sensible stuff there from Christopher Lynch. Just not losing too much time, really, more than anything. Here is the two Canadians of Stewart versus Pinnell battling. Pinnell going down the inside into Lecombe. Old R18 versus new, and the older gets ahead of the newer. So into P9 then for Pinnell. His next target is going to be Kevin Pounder, who has made the one stop so far. I apologise, I got his strategy incorrect earlier on. He started on the hard tyre. He is now on the medium tyre for this middle stint, and presumably he will be two-stopping and going to the soft to the end of this one. But of course, those soft tyres now are going to be a little bit second-hand here for Pounder. He is now on, of course, that soft tyre as well. So I'm getting myself all out of sorts here, but looks like he is not going to be able to hold off the charge of Pinnell here too much. Let's keep an eye on that gap, see how it fluctuates over the next couple of laps or so. Meanwhile, Hayward leading the way quite commandingly, 1.6 seconds. I'm just keeping an eye on the difference in lap times. I say quite commandingly. Last time around, of course, Hayward was in the pit lane. Solace was the fastest man overall with a 1:56 flat. But look in the mirror there. That gap is definitely coming down, isn't it?
Well, you have to think that Hayward's had his fast tyre now. He's gone on to the medium, and Danny, who started on the medium tyre, is now on his fast tyre. So he's going to have the advantage all the way until presumably end of lap 15, when they both come in for that hard compounded tyre. That's what I predict anyway for the strategy. But now, this is where Danny Solace has to push. This is his quick stint. He has to make sure he's putting in the best laps he can. As Tom said, he's put in a really good lap last time around as well. But this is where he needs to go quickly, and you'll see the gap increase as they come out of the source. The source is probably the best place to demonstrate the difference between these older and newer cars, but as soon as you get onto the straight, the old cars start to go into an extra gear almost, and you see that gap come back down again. But it's great to get an on-board here from Daniel Solace. Always awesome to show these things. So go down to Rivage now. Watch him tuck it in here to the apex. Very nice through there. It's so easy to understeer out there. You're going downhill, gravity's working against you down there, so if you brake a little bit too late, the front tyres just sort of give up, and you end up going with it. We're still now on board, coming down to Pouon. One of Tom's favourite corner, I think. Watch him on the way in. Dab of the brake, back on the throttle, 135 mile an hour, lowest speed, and 160 mile an hour on corner exit. Tell you what, any corner exit that's 160 mile an hour, that's a big thumbs up for me.
Yeah, you've taken a brave pill to do that, that's for sure. Here is Solace then, riding on board with him. Hayward just in front. Behind him, 1.9 seconds back, is Robbie Haig, who of course, as we know, is three-stopping in this race. I'm not sure if that strategy is going to work, though, in particular. We'll keep an eye out and see how it all plays out for him, but it's a bold call. Andrew Brooks, who is, again, not too far adrift of him, could be ready to potentially take profit, because that three-stop strategy, you need to have more time in hand than he has got at the moment, I think, to work effectively. But I'm prepared to be proven wrong. Meanwhile, this battle still continues on as that gap comes down now to half a second between Hayward and Solace on the brakes. It's getting very close indeed now, and Solace, of course, well, he needs to take some solace after last time in Suzuka. It was a difficult day at the office for him. Maybe this is his chance to get revenge after ending up in the barriers at T1. And well, he's going the right way about it. Sorry?
Were you like one of those shock collars? Anytime you make a pun, I get to press the button, and that's the end of it. There's no more of it. There you go. I think that would be a good idea. But Solace there running a very interesting livery too. I think adorned with the face of one of his competitors, Mark Pinnell, on there, which is interesting to see. I know those guys, I think, are teammates, or at least very good friends in real life as well. So this is kind of the great thing about GT Sport. Part of it is you get a very interesting range of liveries. You get the really nice kind of professional ones as driven by Randall Hayward, and then you get the ones with our faces slapped on it, and then you get the ones with someone else's face slapped on it, which is it's all part of the fun.
I've already seen somebody saying, is that going to be a downloadable thing within the game? And I'm there like, I really hope it isn't, to be honest. Because you'll just see a load of copies of Gran Turismo Sport flying off the shelves at discount prices if our faces are slapped over liveries on the cars. Goodness me. Well, Hayward versus Solace then. The two American drivers know each other very well, of course, having raced together within our World Tour events. Remember Solace, that meteoric performance he had back in New York for World Tour 3 in 2019. Made his way through from the repechage into the grand final. Didn't light up the timing sheets in the grand final, but the support from the home crowd in America there was just phenomenal to see. And let's see whether he is going to translate his performance here into something very special on track for us. Randall Hayward on the defensive. Solace really closing up indeed. Hayward's going to go defensive, but surely he's going to be powerless. Was there a bit of contact? Maybe into the bus stop. Nearly side by side on the brakes there. Hayward defends the line. He defends the position, and Solace isn't able to find a way past. But look at how significantly close he gets through that corner. But then Hayward is able to pull away on corner exit with the advantage of the hybrid.
Yeah, that's the difference there. It's great to see. I always love getting to see it firsthand because it just gives you an understanding of what the cars are about. And again, that's when your heart sinks as Danny Solace. You go, oh, come on, like, come back. And then you realise, oh, wait a minute, I've got this crazy straight line speed here to come back at him at. And there's 1.3 seconds now going over the top of Radion. Let's see what it is when we come into Les Combes, because that is the difference between the two. So background though, Heck is starting to get onto the back of these guys, so he does owe one more pit stop over everybody else. And that was nearly 4 tenths per second there. That was 4.5 tenths actually, just on the straight alone.
So let's see how that is going to benefit. What he needs to do really is try and get himself close in this midfield section through the Fania chicane and especially through Stavilo, get a good run out of there, and that'll line him up quite nicely for a move into the bus stop. Here then is Robbie Haig. Again, I'm not sure that strategy is going to work on the 3-stopper here because I think he needs more of an advantage over the likes of Brooks and Bayliss, who are only 2-stopping. He's going to make one more stop here, and I'm just not sure it's going to work for him. I'm, again, prepared to be proven wrong, but I'm curious as to the thought process behind that strategy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, one of the luxuries you have with Gran Turismo and other forms of esport racing is you have a lot more time to practice those strategies out. You can go away, you can basically say, right, tonight I'm going to go and run 100 laps, and I'm going to find out what strategy works best. You know, my team do it before big events, these guys do it before big events, and it's just a good way of getting an understanding of what works and what doesn't. And a lot of it depends on driving style too. If you're the sort of driver maybe like Robbie Haig, who's gone for that 3-stop strategy, he needs to stop twice more in this race, and it's probably going to affect his race quite badly, I should say, from here. But maybe he can't make the tyres last. Maybe his driving style doesn't suit that, so he's having to go for a strategy which is more tyre intensive, of course, but also means he has to be quicker, he has to drive quicker to make the most of that. But right now it's not really working out for him. So Randall Hayward still managing to have that gap there from Danny Solace as we get again that hybrid boost in the background's a spin. That was Heck, I think, who went into the wall. Yeah, there he is. I just caught that right in the background there. So Heck came out of the source, hit the hybrid button, must have not had much left. The car went rear-wheel drive and he shot into the inside wall. Things go from bad to worse. Does that count as a commentator curse or not? I don't know. Here comes Tristan Bayliss.
I'd say so.
It does. He goes up the inside as well. So Robbie Haig down to 5th from 3rd.
Oh dear, oh dear. Well, he'll be in his helmet saying, what the heck was that all about, Will Robbie, in P5 now.
I'll press the button.
It's nothing. Nothing's happening there for him now. P5, that is going to really put pace to his race, especially given that 3-stop strategy. What he needed was to be nice and clean, and sadly that has not proven to be the case. I'm just interested in the gap between Hayward and Solace here as well, because I think it's beginning to stabilise between them, whether Solace is coming to the end of his useful life of those soft tyres. Of course, they're wearing out a bit quicker than the medium compounds, which are harder by its name, of course, and in terms of its compound structure. So I think he is going to be in a very interesting position here, Danny Solace. It's coming down once again though in the middle sector, so maybe it was just a bit of an off lap for him because he was very similar in pace to Hayward last time around. Meanwhile, everything beginning to stabilise now in this middle stage of the race is what we're used to seeing, really. It comes alive in the closing stages. The last 3 or 4 laps, as everybody sort of sorts themselves out, is when things get really interesting, and we're coming into that phase here now. So through Blanchimont in towards the bus stop we go. Randall Hayward, of course, on that 2-stopper. Solace dives to the inside very late indeed. Thought he was going to have a bit of a lunge there. Wasn't quite able to make anything stick, but certainly signalling his intentions to get past Hayward before long if he can try.
Yeah, he needs to get it done. He needs to get it done now as Heck comes into the pit lane to get rid of those soft tyres. And this is the thing, as soon as he gets close again, hybrid kicks in, and that Audi can just pull away. So even if you got past there at the bus stop, I mean, he is still succeeding in slowing him down a bit, but he's end up probably losing the pace once again once it's all said and done. Here's Lynch, so he's going to be battling with Heck coming out the pit lane. Heck is going to pull out ahead for now. Heck needs to make one more stop, as does Lynch though. So we're now getting into the final phases of the last parts of strategy now being played by our drivers out there today. It's looking like Hayward versus Solace for the win, but things still going on down the field as Heck goes defensive. Lynch is going to drive by there in the in the older R18 and take that place. Of course, Heck on the newer tyres, and we'll be looking to try and get back through as soon as he can, because the more time he spends behind Lynch, the more time he loses after that, and even after that crash as well. He's looking now to try and gain as much time back as possible.
Or Heck there trying to have a bit of a retaliation into T8, not able to find a way past. It's in this section, of course, though, where that newer R18 is just that bit faster. Acceleration out of corners in particular there for Robbie Haig. We saw the difference in performance as he came out of the pit lane there. Heck was able to pull an advantage, but then as soon as he was on the straight line speed, it was good night Vienna for Heck at the moment. Let's see what is going to happen for him in his race, because he has lost a good chunk of time, as you said, with that spin on the last lap here. Meanwhile, Andrew Brooks just sitting quietly there in third place. Not quite the same level of performance that we've seen from him over the last couple of weekends. That's nothing to discredit him at all. He's been very, very quick out there. Running in third position within the top 16 Superstars race for the North America region is a very impressive feat in itself. But we've seen him leading from the front in some circumstances.
It may be just not quite his car track combo, and it's as you say, it's a big thing for us to say that he's not doing too well when he's sitting in third. You know, it's goes to show how quick and how highly we rate Andrew Brooks here in the GT Sport broadcast. So coming on to lap 15 for our leaders, so they're going to be coming in end of this lap for that hard compound of tyre. Can Danny Solace do anything? Hayward had just enough of a gap, I think, after this was done, to be able to actually keep that gap and keep going, as Heck now comes back at Lynch. He'll get a nice big boost coming out of here too, over Lynch, who's sideways, really trying to get that power down. Lots of torque in these things. These things are diesel as well. We haven't noticed that too much. They have tons of torque low down, so they can really catch you out if you're happy on that throttle. You know, about 2,000, 3,000 RPM, these things are producing the maximum torque, which is crazy to think when you think of how conventional race cars are.
So down the straight then, here comes Heck going defensive. Lynch, though, is going to find his way past surely on the brakes into Leicu. Or Heck's not taking it lying down, though. They're running side by side, squeezing him to the apex of the left-hander is Robbie Heig there. Lynch has got to try and hold it around the outside, and Heck holds on to fifth position there. So, again, he is really trying to hold off that charge of Christopher Lynch in the 2011 Audi R18. We're on the penultimate lap, so this is where we're going to see a lot of drivers darting into the pit lane, including this man here, Randall Hayward, and the man who is chasing him down for the win on the hard compound of tyre. Like you said, I think Hayward has got this one just in the bag. Unless anything goes awry within that pit stop, he has to take more fuel on than expected, I should say. I think Hayward is in a comfortable position here, but what about Andrew Brooks, who's very close behind? He, again, will also be coming into the pit lane. Let's see what will happen, because the hard tyre, as we know, doesn't have anywhere near as much grip as the medium or the soft, and it can catch drivers out when they light up the rear tyres thinking they've got more grip than they do.
No, that's where Randall will have a bit of an advantage there with that four-wheel drive hybrid. A bit more traction coming out the corners, and the cars behind Danny Solace really sending it in there to the bus stop. His last chance to try and get that done. They both come into the pit lane. Of course, going onto that hard compound tyre, same fuel, so there's no difference there at all. So it's going to be a straight fight to line. About a second difference down to the pit crew now. Let's see if they can make the difference at all, as Bayliss in and Andrew Brooks as well. So 4 cars realistically with a chance of winning this if there's a mistake up front. So Hayward comes out the pit, Solace straight after, of course. There is Brooks behind and Bayliss, and now it's a drag race to the line.
So up through Eau Rouge and ready on we go for the final time here for the top 16 Superstars race of the North America region. Stand by your beds. Let's see whether Solace has got anything in the locker. 1.1 seconds the gap sits out. That gap is going to come down on this Kemmel straight with the advantage of the straight line speed. But we're coming into the section that favours the newer R18. I just wonder whether Solace might be able to do something coming into the bus stop for the final time.
I don't know, I think he's too far back, to be honest, Tom, at this point. It really needs to be just an amazing middle sector. He needs to take about a second and a half out of Randall Hayward now to get there. And I think he's having some issues because it's looking like the gap is starting to extend a little bit. If anything now, Danny Solace is under attack from Brooks and Bayliss. So maybe some issues going on there, some hardware issues. We can see that sometimes. It happens in sim racing. It's our version of a mechanical failure. As we come up now to the final chicane for the last time, Brooks there, very closely followed by Tristan Bayliss as well. Kevin Pounder, his strategy worked out okay in the end there, Tom. He's up to 5th place after all that, so he won't be challenging these guys though. Coming out of Stavlo 1 into Stavlo 2 as well. Usually flat through Stavlo 2, these guys flat through there. Easily flat, 140 mile an hour on exit, and now it's going to be a slipstream up to the bus stop.
So, on board we ride here with Tristan Bayliss. Can he do anything against Andrew Brooks? Can Brooks, in turn, do anything to battle Solace? I don't think he's going to be close enough. Hayward has got this one sewn up then. Only 2 more corners from home for the American driver, who has been absolutely faultless in this race. Drove to perfection out of the final corner, and over the line we come. Randall Hayward takes the win in the Nations Cup race for the top 16 Superstars North America region. Solace comes home second. Brooks holds on for third. Tristan Bayliss kept all those guys for the podium. Very honest to the checkered flag in fourth. Kevin Pounder, with a good strategy on the soft tyre, comes home P5. Robbie Haig, he'll be ruining what might have been in 6th position. Lynch in 7th. Then Mitchell comes home in 8th place. Leslie is just going to hold 9th position ahead of Mark Pinnell as Valandia comes home in 11th place there. But a very exciting race in the top 16 Superstars for the North Americas region. This man here, Randall Hayward, he'll be having a grin as wide as the circuit here at Spa-Francorchamps after that. A very, very impressive performance here from Hayward, righting the wrongs that he's had previously. Danny Solace, though, fastest man with the best lap overall. However, it wasn't quite enough to take the win. You can see there the podium: Hayward, Solace and Brooks, then Bayliss, Pounder, Heck, Lynch and Mitchell. The first of the Peugeot 908 down in 8th position there, so it wasn't the car to be in within this race at least. We had seen it more competitive in other regions such as Oceania, but sadly not here in North America. Leslie and Pinnell complete the top 10 ahead of the Toyota of Valandia. Then comes Helt, Morel, Stewart, Holman and Grove. So that is our top 16 finishers here for this race. Let's see what it changes in the championship standings. So the championship standings after 10 rounds, Andrew Brooks keeps hold of his lead, but look, very small margin he has now over Randall Hayward, who's really closed it up there, Jimmy.
Yeah, big points haul for Hayward. That would have again closed the gap. Now only 12 points between Brooks and Hayward. Great to see that such a close standings after 10 rounds there. Good round for Kevin Pounder and Tristan Bayliss, of course, both moving up to 5th and 6th. Mark Pinnell unfortunately losing out down to 7th position as well. And Mitchell as well gaining a place there. Now equal points with Parker for a tied 9th position.
So that's what it means in the standings then. Let's get ready, shall we, for more racing action with the Manufacturer Series coming up next. So then, we've just seen the Nations Cup. We move over, as we said, to the Manufacturer Series. We're at the Autodromo de Interlagos in Group 3 cars, racing soft, medium and hard compounds of tyres available to these drivers. 20 laps, though, in these machines. That's going to be quite a tantalising prospect here, Jimmy, because this track, it lends itself to close racing. Strategy, as we know, is going to come into play here inevitably as well.
It can be a weird one, this, because having fresh tyres through that middle sector is worth about a second and a half. It really is very important to have good tyres through there. But as you say, it's a close circuit, and while the middle sector is very quick on new tyres, it's very hard to pass through there. So that's where you have to kind of think to yourself, is it worth doing the free stop? Is it worth doing the two stop and trying to avoid that? But that's why these guys are the best, and we're commentators. That's why I don't know.
Yeah, we just get out of it scot-free, really, and just sit there talking about it for half an hour. Anyway, let's talk about it, shall we? And see what happens, and go over to the grid. Here then is how the field lines up at the Autodromo de Interlagos in Sao Paulo. Group 3 cars, as we said. It's going to be pretty tantalising, this one, I can tell you. On pole position, Andrew Brooks in the Citroen. So he's done well. That car in Group 3 trim, very quick indeed. Armin Aghacan, though, lines up alongside him in the Toyota Supra. Second row of the grid, headed by Troncoso in the Lamborghini Huracan. And alongside him in the Hyundai Genesis is Kevin Pounder. Can he translate that strong qualifying in fourth to a good result at the checkered flag? Nick McMillan from fifth in the Aston will be trying to do the same thing, as will this man here of Lynch, of course, as well in the McLaren 650S. Next row of the grid, headed by Richard Castro in the Nissan GTR. Alongside him is Parker in the Volkswagen Beetle. Ninth place on the grid, Tristan Bayliss once again repping Porsche. Rounding out the top 10 is Cortez. That is Tristan Cortez in the Ferrari 458. 11th position, Randall Hayward all the way down there. Tough qualifying for him. After that strong result in Nations, he'll be trying to do something pretty strong here, as will Robbie Haig down in 12th position. Again, difficult day at the office so far. Lynch lines up P13 in the Audi R8. And 14th position, Mark Pinnell in the Alfa Romeo 4C. As we know, not the quickest in Group 3 trim. Doc lines up in 15th position. Another Aston on the grid here, once again, good to see. And McFadden is, again, the second Toyota Supra in the field. So the top two, starting on the soft tyres. Troncoso and Pounder here on the mediums. What do you think?
Well, again, this is the typical strategy we see for the guys at the top. They want to get away and get away quickly on that soft compound tyre. They don't want to have to deal with the rest of the field. We have seen that medium compound runners can kind of hang on around here, so it's not as easy as just put on the softs and drive away. Interestingly, Troncoso in the Lamborghini. That Lamborghini have done pretty well here, I think, over the course of the manufacturers' races we've seen so far. Looking pretty quick, our Lambo, so good to see them being represented well and actually doing well, because they've not been around for a bit. But Andrew Brooks there in that Citroen. Again, he's been repping that all season, as you can see, and looking very, very fast here today at Interlagos. Can he convert this pole position to a win?
Let's find out, shall we, as we get ready. 20 laps in Sao Paulo, a circuit that is full of character, oozing from every piece of tarmac that's been laid on this circuit. Let's see what is going to happen, though, at the checkered flag. Andrew Brooks and Armin Aghacan on the soft tyres will lead the field over the timing line. You should expect them to pull away and the hard compound runners to pull into the pit lane at the end of lap 1. But we get ready to go racing here. Manufacturers Series for the North America's region top 16 Superstars race is go then. Down towards the centre S for the first time. Look at Kevin Pounder looking aggressive on the inside against Troncoso. Was he able to make a move? Not quite through there. Nick McMillan also looking pretty dicey coming down through the corner. It's through turn 3 and down the Retro Posta where we should see some moves being made. Somebody getting a little bit squirrely there in the background. I think that might have been Richard Castro in the GTR. There he is. Not too much of a sitting duck because he's got the slipstream advantage, of course, of Christopher Lynch. Meanwhile, a little bit side by side in the background there. Tristan Bayliss trying to go down the inside of Dan Parker, but not able to find his way past. I apologise, Donovan Parker, not able to find his way past the Volkswagen Beetle through there at the moment.
Yeah, a fairly clean start. Apart from that, as Tristan Bayliss looks up the inside of Parker coming into T6 there, as Castro gets a little bit of a hip and shoulder coming into 6. So does Parker from Bayliss. I said they were being clean and they changed their minds pretty much straight away there. Castro in the relatively chunky GTR managing to keep everyone behind for now. Lynch, of course, there at the head of this hard runner pack. This is where anybody behind, where Cortez, Heck and Parker need to get by quickly in that medium compound. Right now it's a bit of a free-for-all as Heck gives Cortez a shove wide there at the right-hander. Cortez loses their position there. Heck goes up into 9th place. A bit rough for my liking, but apparently that's all okay. So now we go up the hill through Yungkao and now up towards the start-finish line. It's not really a straight this, more of a curved corner. And this is where being at the front of the pack is probably the worst place to be because you're giving the toe to everyone coming down there. Meanwhile, 3rd, 4th and 5th, Nick McMillan had a good start on the back of Kevin Pounder in the Genesis. He's in the Aston Martin V12 Vantage. Looks to the inside, going to go for a big lunge there on Kevin Pounder. He might get it done too, but Kevin's still got the inside for this next right-hander, the next part of the centre S. Nick's going to have the more open exit, and McMillan makes it work. A nice pass there from Nick and the Aston.
Fantastic to see for Nick McMillan, of course. The Aston team have done well in our World Tour events previously. See the hard tyre runners, as we said, coming into the pit lane. Everybody but Mark Pinnell going on to the medium tyres. Pinnell going and opting for the softer compound here then. So through the left-hander we go and begin the climb into the middle stage of this circuit. Andrew Brooks, meanwhile, at the front of this one has pulled out a half-second advantage over Arman Aga. 2.6 seconds those two soft compound runners have over Troncoso in third position, who of course is driving that Lamborghini. Manuel Troncoso, a little bit wide there for Robbie Haig in the forefront of your shot. Tristan Cortez and also Parker ready to try and take advantage if they can. Coming through the left-hander we go. And this is where they're running so close to one another. It was exactly the same last time around, but just one mistake here can really cost you very dearly indeed. And we've seen that in other regions, races in our Oceania region, and of course to an extent in our EMEA region as well. Let's see whether things turn themselves around though. A little bit wide there for Troncoso in the foreground, but holds on to that position. Nick McMillan, he would love to have a strong result. He's been pretty unlucky, I think it's fair to say, in World Tour events previously. The hazard's on there for Troncoso, so I don't think he's going to put up too much of a fight here compared to Nick McMillan. On the soft compound of tyres is the American driver. Side by side they come, down towards the centre S. The Aston Martin is through into P3.
Great start to the race there for Nick McMillan. Very, very feisty it seems. Of course, he is on that softer compound of tyres, so just have a little bit of an advantage in that regard, but making it work, getting by the guys he needs to get by nice and quickly, and now we can try and chase down Aga and Brooks there in first and second. Meanwhile, Parker in the VW Beetle onto the back of Cortez and Heck, who had a little bit of a scrap on the first lap of the race. Parker, again, always great seeing the Beetle go around. Every time I see it, I always feel I need to mention it because it's just one of these really weird, odd and wacky cars that can only really exist in GT, but would be viable in real life if VW went and did it, because look at it. It meets the regs. It's not a traditional car, but it works.
What was it you said last time? There was a classic line from you, Jimmy, about the aerodynamic properties of it. I think it had the aerodynamic property of a two-bed house or something.
Oh, that sounds like a Brooks line. I think it's just more that's the GTR, mate. That's your semi-detached GTR coming down the straight, the turbo brick as we love it. Anyway, that's not in our frame right now. What is Kevin Pounder in the Genesis. You've got to say, Tom, that Troncoso and Pounder are actually holding on to the back of McMillan well, despite the fact they are on the less grippy medium compound tyre.
I tell you what, it's lovely to see all these different manufacturers fighting in the foreground of the upfront in this race. I mean, if you look, we've got Citroën, Toyota, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Hyundai, Porsche, Ferrari, Volkswagen, and as well as Audi and McLaren, all inside the top 10. So a different manufacturer for each position, and that is fantastic to see. And that's what we love about this, is that we can see close racing, such as we've got here with Robbie Haig and Tristan Cortez, as well as Parker. So this is going to get quite interesting. Keep an eye out in the background there as well, because Leach is not too far away. Parker Leach. So we've got Darryl Parker rather, Donovan Parker. I will get his name right eventually. I apologise there, Donovan. Donovan Parker, and then we've got Parker Leach, who is close behind. So again, more confusion for me, and as you can tell, I'm getting confused already. Bit of a slip and a slide there through turn 4 for Tristan Cortez. That allows Parker to close up then. Coming up the hill in towards the right-hander, Cortez goes defensive. A little bit of a look there from Parker, but not able to find his way through at the moment. If they start squabbling amongst one another, it might just allow a small break for that man who we were riding on board with, of Robbie Haig.
They can't be doing that too much, Cortez. That's a bit of a late move to defend from Parker there. Wait, we say if you have a reactionary defensive move, that's when you have to start thinking about giving the position back. And then that Parker sends that up the inside of the Ferrari. Cortez getting passed in the same place he was passed by Heck a couple of laps previously. And interestingly, again, slidey, we've seen that before, Tom. The Ferrari starts to eat its rear tyres and just can't quite keep the thing going before. We saw it in one of the previous races, I forget the driver, but losing it coming down the fast left-hander. And you're seeing that already happen to the Ferrari now.
It's a stunning looking machine there, that Ferrari. I've got a real soft spot for it, I must say. But Leach there in the background, ready to try and take advantage. Here is Andrew Brooks still leading the way, now 0.8 of a second ahead of Arman Aga, who's kept him honest in the opening stages of this one. So these two with their promising qualifying positions are in a good position in the race, quite literally and figuratively speaking as well, to try and take advantage. So the top three soft runners, of course, of Brooks, Aga and Nick McMillan. McMillan, of course, a little bit further of a way down. Only 1 second ahead of Troncoso. That may be due to the difference in pace overall between the Aston Martin and the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini, of course, was definitely quicker in qualifying trim, but of course that soft tyre in these opening stages is definitely helping Nick McMillan's charge up the order. In the background there, 5th place, Kevin Pounder, looking ready to try and take advantage, if he can, of anything going on between these guys, but settling down, I think, a little bit in these first stages. A bit of a frantic first couple of laps, and everybody's sort of getting into their rhythm now as the strategies will begin to play out very shortly.
Yeah, this is where we get into that kind of that mid-race chill zone. I think lull is a bit of a bad word. Chill zone sounds more hip. I'm into that, but the chill zone says the boomer Jimmy. But I think at this point, it's just need to really kind of make sure you're running your strategy, as silly as that sounds. It's really easy to start forcing the guy in front and trying to think, I'm going to now push him and start driving a bit more aggressively and start burning those tyres. But especially if you're in a 2-stop strategy, you kind of have to look after the tyres a little bit around here. There are a couple of big corners around here that really ruin each side of the tyre. Of course, turn 6 and the downhill left-hander at the end of sector 2 are both corners that just abuse each one of the front tyres. So it's there is a level of just keeping the tyres alive around here, a bit of that going on. Here's Brooks. He's got a second now on Aga Khan in that Citroen. Looking fairly comfortable out there for now. Of course, he's on that softer compounder tyre, so enjoying the grip those tyres provide at the moment. Aga Khan there as well, just coming into the background. Who picked up before we switched camera angles there was Nick McMillan in the background, the other soft runner. And then it's about a second or so back to Troncosko. The thing is, this kind of second, or the two guys on the mediums, Troncosko and Pounder, both looking quite strong right now, considering they did start on that lower quality tyre.
Which bodes well for them later in the race, of course. They've still got that soft compound here to run, so we'll keep an eye on that, see how their race is going to develop, keeping an eye on this man here as well, of Donovan Parker, who, again, is still very close to Robbie Haig. Those two, a little bit of breathing space between them now, and Tristan Cortez as well as Parker Lynch. That Audi R8, as we know, balance of performance doesn't allow it to be quite as quick as we have seen previously in World Tour events, but still, drivers opting to rep it. I reckon there's a chance for it to be a little bit quicker later on in the season as that balance of performance, of course, gets continually adjusted. Let's see what will happen with that. There is Parker Lynch, very distinctive livery on that car, I think it's fair to say. You can spot that from a mile off.
Yeah, I kind of like it, actually. I always like the kind of bold colours in the livery. It's good to... It's a nice livery, that one. I definitely approve of it. Meanwhile, Kevin Pounder a bit closer, I think, now to Troncosko in the Lamborghini. Hyundai versus Lamborghini. This is why I love these Group 3 manufacturer events. Such as you say, such a wide range, such a diversity of different manufacturers here driving today. And in the braking zone, the Kevin Pounder looking a little bit more confident, but then maybe that slows him up a little bit on exit. But that's where the Lambo really has that advantage, traction on corner exit, that mid-engine layout. The weight is over the rear tyre, so you get a nice traction that way. But of course, the downside to that is when the tyres start to go, you really feel it, because you're putting so much traction down, you're wearing those tyres maybe a little bit quicker, and then suddenly, pop, it's all gone, and you find yourself doing a little pretty pirouette somewhere on the circuit.
Well, you were saying about Hyundai versus Lamborghini. I drive a Hyundai, not a Lamborghini. I'd love to see mine going up against a Huracan. Probably be quite a difference in performance. Thankfully, here, it's not so, and we get some close racing between them. It's brilliant to see.
Yeah, but you're a boy racer with your pops and banks map, aren't you?
A very good
I've
point.
seen you out there. Anyway,
Kevin Pounder, P5 for him at the moment. What do you think's going through his mind as we're sat there right now? He's in a good position here, not quite as quick as Troncoso last time around in terms of his lap times, but definitely keeping him honest. Do you think he's in a good position to try and pounce later on in this race, given that, of course, those two have got the softer compound of tyres to run?
Yeah, you're in a bit of a weird place here if you're Kevin Pounder, because I think that he's being dragged along slightly, and that's what I was talking about there, as the traction starts to leave the rear of Troncosko's Lamborghini there, where you think, right, maybe I'm a bit quicker than this guy in front, but am I just being dragged along down the straights by the Lambo? And then, you know, is that helping me catch the guy in front? Because sometimes there's that element of working together. If you can find a guy who's just about the same sort of pace as you, but also has a car quicker in a straight line, you can just grab that slipstream and gain a couple of attempts of that way. But see, right now, he's losing time because he's pretty much driving into the back of Troncosko coming up towards the hill there. There's nowhere for him to go. There's no line you can take to get around him. So it's a weird... You have to weigh up both options there as a driver. Do I try and get past him? Do I lose that time that will inevitably I'll lose if I try and pass someone. Or do I just stay here, bide my time, wait until I'm on the softer tyre, and then pounce, and then go after the leaders? But that's a tricky thing, because all this time they are losing time to the soft runners.
Stuck in that dirty air, of course. It's not quite as prominent as the Group 1 cars that we saw last time around. It does lend itself to a little bit closer racing here in these Group 3 cars, but it definitely does have an effect. I imagine probably in the medium to high speed corners more than the slower speed corners here, Jimmy. And talking about the dirty air as well, for those who aren't aware, what do we mean when we say about that? How does it affect the car, and what does it change in the characteristics as these two come into the pit lane?
Well, I said dirty air is just a term we use for kind of disrupted air when oh, hello, we'll get back to that in a second, because we've had a bit of a divergence here. Kevin Pounder's gone for the hard compound, so he's going to go for that one lap out there and then just go from there, whereas Troncoso's gone for the fast middle stint on the soft. That's maybe a good idea there from Kevin, to try and basically distance himself from Troncoso, just doing the opposite of what maybe he thought the guy in front would do, and then giving himself some clean air and then being on the soft tyre and then maybe undercutting him that way. It's there's a lot of forward thinking going on here. But to return very quickly to the dirty air thing we were speaking about, basically these cars, the big wings and whatnot you see on there, they all produce aerodynamics or downforce, if we say, that push the car to the ground. But they do that by disturbing the air that they go through. As Hayward looks up the inside of Bayliss, he makes the move stick on that soft compounded tyre, as we would expect. And when the air is being disturbed and you're following behind in your car with lots of aerodynamics and wings and downforce and whatnot, you're not getting the full whack as you would do if you were driving on your own in clean air, which means you don't get the downforce you would, which means the car doesn't turn as well. So the closer you get, the greater that effect, pretty much. You see it really mostly in about 5/10 about seconds. So luckily in these cars that effect isn't quite as dramatic as maybe a Group 2 or a Group 1 car. But it does still play a role here. Anyway, Aga into the pits, onto the medium tyres as well. McMillan staying out.
So Aga going to try and undercut Brooks here, isn't he? I imagine, going in a lap earlier.
Possibly. It depends. Brooks is looking pretty quick out there as it is. I think the gap was about, 2 seconds or so when they bitted it in? So he's got a little bit of a buffer there. So it's got to be a quick outlap from Aga Khan to get that done as well. It depends where he comes out, because he might come out in some traffic. We'll see. I think that's him in the background there. So coming out in third in the Toyota. Is there anybody around him? No. So that's a really nice place to come out for Armour and Aga Khan. So he can just now get on with it. Hasn't got to worry about anyone lunging up the inside. Hasn't got to worry about trying to overtake anyone. He can just drive on his own and get those laps in. Hayward still making those positions up on that fresher set of soft tyres in the background. Heck, Bayliss. And I think that was Lynch as well having a bit of a scrap. There's Heck, he's at the head of this little pack at the moment. Lynch is stuck on the outside, he's come up towards T6. Got that drive in the Audi though. Who's going to give first coming up to the first fast right-hander? Let's see. Heck holds the inside line. Lynch is going to try and go all the way around the outside. He's going to be run out of room there by Heck onto the exit curb. Heck still has the line here. If Lynch can stay there, he might get the cut back. No, he has to yield, and Heck takes the place.
A great scrapping going on between these drivers. Lovely to see such respect. Here comes Heck for a dive down the inside of the Alfa Romeo of Mark Pinnell, who was late on the brakes. That's allowed Parker Lynch to come through as well here. Side by side they go on corner exit. The Audi's going to drive clean around the outside of the Alfa Romeo here. Nothing that Pinnell can do, despite being on that softer compound of tyre. Just doesn't have the car underneath him. Brooks to McMillan into the pit lane, then onto the medium compound of tyres here. You'd imagine Cortez is going to come into the pits here as well from that scrap, because he's on the hard tyre, wants to get off those as soon as possible. Here comes Aga Khan into the lead of the race for the moment then, but where, of course, is Andrew Brooks going to emerge in this race and the remainder of the field? There he is in the forefront of your shot. So Andrew Brooks, despite that pit stop and despite the clean air for Aga Khan, wasn't able to close up that gap. In fact, if anything, it's increased. Now here comes Troncoso versus McMillan, Lamborghini versus Aston. The Lambo is now ahead through into P3, so that's cost McMillan a position here as well.
Well, there you go then. There are how the positions lie at the moment. McMillan's still there though, which is interesting. It's odd how these guys are together on circuit, given there was a bit of a gap beforehand as well. No, sorry, no, it's the wrong way around. Sorry, my brain is is getting things mixed up a little bit there. So they both made a stop. They both basically switched tyres, one on the soft, one on the medium, and it looks like now that Troncoso has a bit of clearer ahead to try and chase down Aga Khan. So he's on the faster tyre now. So what can he do? Can he bring down this gap to the two leaders? Heck, meanwhile, up to P6, now challenging Hayward.
So then, BMW versus Porsche. Audi in the background there as well. lot of German manufacturers, a trio of them, all squabbling for positions, and Haig is looking very aggressive. Coming up in towards Junkau is the American driver going to think about a move down the inside of his, or up the inside I should say, of that left-hander of his fellow compatriot. Not quite close enough at the moment, but if he can get a good run on this straight, this is where he'll have the time to try and do so. In the slipstream of the BMW is the Porsche driver then, coming down, but into the pit lane goes Randall Hayward then. So he is coming in and going soft, so he's 3 stopping then in this race. Clearly Randall thinks he can make that work if he just goes flat out from here now until the finish.
There wasn't a decent qualifying for Randall. I've heard in the past that the BMW is pretty bad on fuel in some circumstances. I think there is a bit of a fuel stop around here. It's ×3 fuel consumption as well. So maybe just getting that stop out of the way, maybe thinking, oh, well, I've got to go soft then if I've got to make up this extra fuel I've got to use. So that could be an idea. That was on the older BOP, though. Things might have changed since then. And meanwhile, we go back to the action on circuit. There's Haig and Lynch together. Of course, Lynch repping that really cool livery. I'm a big fan of that. We mentioned that before. And Audi, so mid-engine Audi versus technically mid-engine Porsche. They're trying to say it's rear-engine. If you're wondering what makes a car rear or mid-engine, if it's rear-engine, it means the engine is behind the rear axle. If it's mid, it means it's basically in front of it. So, but the Porsche has kind of come more and more forward with that engine as time has gone on, and now that it's more of a mid-engine than a rear-engine car. That's a bit of very boring trivia for you. Hope you enjoyed it.
Cheers for the insight there, Jimmy. Here then is Andrew Brooks, your race leader at the moment, 5.3 seconds ahead of Arman Aghakan, so he's increased that advantage by about half a second or so since he came out of the pit lane, and Brooks doing exactly what he did last time, just looking in control of things at the moment. Perfect drive so far from the Citroen driver. A little bit of a lock-up in towards T1, but nothing really to trouble him. Just to give you an idea of his lap time, last time around a 1:30.7. Very impressive stuff. You compare that to Arman Aghakan, who was a 1:31 flat, so a little bit of a difference in performance between them, and that is going to be very crucial in terms of what will happen come the checkered flag here. Now Troncoso is closing up at the back of Aghakan. You would expect that, of course, because Troncoso is on the softer compound of tyre, whereas Aghakan is on the medium. Of course, Troncoso started on the mediums. So he's in a good position now. He's on his fast phase in the middle of this race, closing up onto the back of the Toyota driver. I wonder whether he's going to be able to do something before they both come in on the penultimate lap and pit for the harder compound of tyres. This could work out very nicely indeed for the Lamborghini driver here.
Yeah, but would he want to, though, Tom? That's the question. Would he want to put himself in a position where he's now having to squabble and lose out on that soft compound of tyre and lose out on that free air that he's had before? This is the catch-22 of when you finally get onto the back of someone, you think, oh, finally I'm there, great, fantastic. But if we're on different strategies and I'm being held up by the guy on a slower tyre right now, I'm not getting the most out of my fast tyre. I'm having to drive to his pace, so to speak. So Troncoso will be looking to get onto the back of him and get by as quick as possible and not have any time lost whatsoever. Now here we are, Aston Martin versus VW Beetle. We're on board with Donovan Parker. As we come up the hill, look to the right-hand side, there's the Aston. The Aston's always had that big grunt, that big V12 in the front of it, propelling it along in a straight line. The indicator going on there from the middle, maybe saying, go on then, mate, I'm not going to fight you, see what happens here. Yeah, brakes a little bit earlier. Parker goes through on the inside, but middle on that medium compound of tyre, knows it's coming. And that's the sign of a driver that's kind of thinking of the race as a whole, as opposed to that one moment. He's thinking of, I don't want to lose any time to Parker fighting. I'm going to let him by, just going to follow him for as long as I can, and then get back onto the hard tyre at the end of the race.
Lap 14 out of 20 we're on, getting towards the business end of this Manufacturers Series race. Here we are running on board with the Lamborghini Huracan of Troncoso. There is Aghakan just in the front of your shot, up the hill into the right-hander of Ferradura. We're going to go hard on the brakes into the hairpin there. You can see how much more closer and how much more grip Troncoso has got underneath him. Just to give you an idea of the difference in lap times, a personal best last time around for Troncoso, a 1:30 flat, whereas Aghakan a 1:31.1, so 1.1 seconds the difference, and that is evident to see how much that gap has decreased over the last lap there, even running a little bit wide into the right-hander, and now he is really closing up through this long left-hander as we come up the hill, the rise in towards Junkau. Troncoso surely is going to be at an advantage of Aghakan here. Aghakan running a bit wide through that corner is not going to help his drive onto the straight then, or the long climb up towards the start-finish straight. Side by side we go, Troncoso versus Aghakan, Lamborghini versus Toyota on the inside here for Troncoso. Is he going to be able to find his way through? He is. Over the timing line we go, and that is brilliant driving there from him as he gets himself into second position in this race. Very impressive stuff indeed from Manuel. And now...
He needed to do that. Needed to get by at that point in that soft tyre. He can't be there waiting behind Aga Khan on the medium compound, because right now, essentially, this is a battle as it would be at the end of the race, because they all have to go onto the hard tyre at the end. So any gap that Troncoso can make here is fantastic. He needs to now try and take as much time out of Brooks as possible. 6 seconds is the gap at the moment. About 5 laps or so on this tyre, or 4.5 I guess including this one, before they go onto the hard tyre at the end. So this is now the battle for the lead.
Yeah, this is very interesting indeed. Here then is Robbie Haig versus Parker Lynch. This is for 6th position. Both these drivers on the same strategy, on the soft compound of tyre at the moment. Both of them started on the medium tyre as well. Interestingly, Haig went a lap longer in his opening stint, went for 9 laps as opposed to Lynch, who went for 8 laps. So, well, he's got a lap fresher in terms of his soft tyres at the moment, but Lynch's pace is very comparative to Haig, even Haig making a few mistakes coming up out of Yuncao there. So, looking a little bit scrappy, I think it's fair to say, for the Porsche 911 driver. Qualified quite far down the order, actually. If you compare that, of course, to his performance in the Nations Cup race we saw just a few moments ago, very different kettle of fish there for him.
Yeah, I mean, it happens sometimes. Sometimes you don't quite have the car knowledge or the track knowledge, and it can go against you. But of course, that's the great thing about having 2 different series to take part in. You get kind of two bites of the cherry, so to speak, for a decent result. And right now, Haig is doing well there, representing Porsche, the highest Porsche runner right now. Of course, that's where you want to be if you are in this race with a fellow manufacturer, a fellow teammate. For your manufacturer, I should say. He is right now ahead of Tristan Bayliss, who is also representing Porsche, which is a big tick in his box. But a few laps left here. McMillan is up the road about 3 seconds. These guys are gaining on the Aston driver in 5th, so this should be a squabble for 5th place coming up fairly soon as well. And again, this is where the tyres make the biggest difference. Coming into this middle sector from here, this is where you get the great traction, you get the great change of direction through here, and you can really gain a lot of time through here. All the time at Interlagos is in that middle sector. Anyone will tell you that. So then, through the right-hander we go, coming down the hill. Meanwhile, just looking a little bit further down the order, Richard Castro, who started relatively strongly in this race, was inside the top 10, now down in 11th position. He has done a 3-stopper, so he is going pretty flat out to the floor to the end of this one. He's right up close with Tristan Cortez then, who is in P10 at the moment, is the Ferrari driver. We were talking about him earlier on because that Ferrari is pretty good at burning up its rear tyres, so it would seem. And such is the fact that, of course, Castro has got softer, newer rubber on his car. You would imagine it won't be a particularly hard task for him to find his way through. Coming down the straight we go, heading in towards the Senna S for the 17th time then. He's got the advantage of the slipstream, he pulls to the inside. We go side by side for 10th place then. Castro on the inside, Cortez on the outside. A very simple move there for the Nissan driver. The GTR is now through into the top 10. So that strategy working okay for him here so far. But of course, Hayward, just in front, is on a very similar, or he's on exactly the same strategy. So I wonder if that's going to be a bit of a stalemate between those two for now. Maybe. I mean, top 10 is a decent position, but you always want to be a bit higher. We always say in these races that these are the 16 best drivers in the region at the moment. So very high strength of field if you think about it that way, of course. And the top 10 in that is a fantastic result. But I can tell you that Castro won't be happy with that. He wants to, of course, be at the top, as they all do. Any racing driver, be it in simulator or be it out there on the real tarmac, will want to be at the front of the field. It's just a competitive drive. And Castro again, 10th will be okay for him, but I doubt we'll be leaving this race happy with a result like that.
Yeah, difficult day at the office. So then, here is Robbie Haig again, running a little bit wide. Seems to be his line really coming out of Yuncao there. Just in the front of the shot there was Nick McMillan in P5. Again, started very strongly, but on this middle stint on the medium tyre hasn't made too much of an impression on this race. Just seeing fastest lap overall came through last time around actually from Randall Hayward, who is on that soft compound of tyre in at 9th position. So the BMW driver looking very competitive here so far in the closing stages of this one. We're on the third but last lap of this race. It's the penultimate lap next time around where we're expecting the drivers, or they will come into the pit lane for that hard compound of tyre. At the moment, I think Brooks has got this one pretty sewn up. battle for the podium might be interesting to see whether Parker can close up onto the back of Aga Khan. Running out a bit of time though, he is. So let's see how things go here. There is Aga Khan in the Toyota Supra. Third position for him so far. The field is quite spread out, I think, in this middle stage, and has kind of corrupted us of a little bit of a strong finish towards the end of this one. Everyone just opting for their different strategies. This is the way it works sometimes in racing, isn't it? Sometimes you just don't get the close, frantic, nail-biting finishes that we are used to seeing.
We do have a couple of things yet to happen, of course. We still have the top 7 still to make their final stop, so we might get a bit of a fast finish that we tend to see in these races. The way that the tyres have to be used to be quick around here tends to mean we have a very quick or a very interesting final lap usually, but sometimes a little bit of a chill zone in the middle. See, I'm really going to try and push this chill zone as a
we'll get it in the dictionary
term. Yeah, and then there'll be a picture of me and a thumbs down next to it. But anyway, here is Parker. So he's coming now onto his penultimate lap, and this is where some of the drivers now are going to be going onto that high compound tyre. Lynch has decided to do it now. You can still do it on the final lap, so you can come in on the final lap and do it that way. So we'll be seeing our top 7 drivers, top 6 drivers, sorry. They'll be into the pits at the end of this lap to go on to that next compound, and we'll see what that does to shake up the order.
I think Lynch had to because he had no fuel left in the car, just 4 litres in the Audi when he came into the pit lane there. Has got a few more in there now just to get him to the end of this one. Here is Andrew Brooks, who again has just looked calm and confident. We're so used to seeing it now with the Canadian driver. And he was so unlucky last year in the World Tour events. You know, we saw him in tears. I think it was at Tokyo last year. Just had no luck at all. And now things are finally going his way, which is great to see in these top 16 Superstars events. And we hope when we're able to get the World Tour back up and running to full capacity, we'll see Andrew Brooks there and putting in some strong performances, because we know that he can. That's evident with the level of driving that we've seen from him in these top 16 Superstars events to date then. So, around the final corner we go, into the pit lane then, to start the final lap, onto the harder compound of tyres. As Jimmy said, it is at least the top 6 drivers who have to make their final pit stops in this race. Presumably Pounder probably will do as well. Into the pits we go, hard tyres then for him, as does Aga Khan and Troncoso. Near enough no fuel left in these cars as well to the end of this one. Nick McMillan running on fumes, 2 litres left in his Aston Martin.
Yeah, about 7 will get you around the lap, so if you haven't to put any fuel in at all, you are losing out there. And a couple of guys putting quite a big chunk of fuel in. I think they actually meant to do that, but it's that's how it should be now. So Kevin Pounder, let's see where he comes out. He is the fast runner on the soft tyre. He's going behind Parker right now. So here we go then, fast finish. Pounder comes out the pit behind Parker, who's on that hard compounder tyre. Aga Khan in front as well on the harder compound. So Pounder might be able to pick up a podium here if he can get past Parker now. It has to be now. He cannot stay behind the VW driver. Sort of send it up the inside and make it work. Come on, Kevin, mate. There you go. Be brave. Parker overshoots the left-hander, and now Pounder is released to chase down Aga Khan. It's only 1.2 seconds for that middle sector. On that soft tyre, he can make that work. This could be a podium here for Kevin in the Hyundai.
Let's see what happens then. Getting very interesting. You were spot on in your analysis there, Jimmy, about how this race is going to turn out. Kevin Pounder, he's going to have to really drive with a bit between his teeth. 1 second he's got to Armin Aga Khan. He's going to have to drive without his skin. He's running out of time, though, as he's only got really 1 more corner to make a lunge. It would then be a drag to the line, and I don't think it's going to be enough. It might just be a bit of a bridge too far. No questions, though, for this man here. Andrew Brooks around the final corner and across the line to take the win in the Manufacturer Series race for the North Americas region. Manuel Troncoso for Lamborghini takes 2nd position at the checkered flag. 3rd place over the line comes Armin Aga Khan. Kevin Pounder brilliantly on the final lap snatches 4th place away from Donovan Parker. 5th place goes of him, then 6th of Hayward, very close in the lower half of the top 10. Nick McMillan, the big loser, I think, in all of that. Jimmy, you were talking about him having to take fuel on board the car. He ended up in the lower half of the top 10 at the checkered flag.
Yeah, he did, and he just, I think, maybe just a little bit of a consolation, pipped Bayliss right at the end there over the line. I think Bayliss ran out of fuel or something. It was very slow the last part of the circuit there. But yeah, McMillan there, I think it's fair to say he got the strategy all sorts of wrong. And 9th place from starting 5th is not going to be something he's going to be happy with.
Final results you can see on your screen. Brooks, Troncoso, Aga Khan on the podium. Pounder and Parker rounding out the top 5. Randall Hayward with the fastest lap in the BMW lines up in P6 ahead of Richard Castro and Tristan Cortez in the Ferrari 458. I wonder if that Ferrari had better tyre life, whether we might see it a bit further up the order, because it's a strong qualifier. McMillan, Bayliss inside the top 10 ahead of Haig, Leach, Lynch, Pinnell, Dog and McFadden completing our 16 drivers then. So with that said, let's see what it means for the standings in the Manufacturers Series. So Andrew Brooks cements his lead at the top of the order then, ahead of Danny Solace, Armin Aga Khan, Randall Hayward making some good ground there. A lot of movers up the order actually here, Jimmy, as well, by the looks of things. Very, very close though in the lower half of that top 10 with Heck, Pounder and Parker not too far adrift of one another.
Yeah, super close there between Hayward and Castro on the same points, but 4th down to 9th. Separated by, if my maths is correct, 58 points. So pretty much a good result for any of those guys. Means there's going to be a change in the order in the next race.
Good stuff. Well, the next Top 16 Superstars event is coming your way on the 21st of June. We'll be back in action for that. My thanks to Jimmy Broadbent and to the entire team at Gran Turismo for being able to bring this to you. I've been Tom Brooks. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.